Hello, everybody. Okay, we're going to start things off with a quick informal poll in the comments. I've got 3 dogs in the room with me. Which one do you want to see first? Do you want to see Wrigley, the oldest? Do you want to see Oreo, the middlest? Or do you want to see... Sorry, Luke is the middlest. Oreo is the youngest. Which of those 3 do you want to see? Let me know in the comments. Hi, girl. Oh, and I should probably close that window. But we know it's working. Can I pick them all up at the same time? Probably not. But we'll start with Oreo. Where's... There you are, girl. Here, Oreo. So someone say roll for initiative. Oreo's the camera hog. That's true. This is Oreo. Now, Oreo just got spayed yesterday. So if you hear her cry just a little bit today, she might be in a little pain. But mostly, she's doing okay today, actually. Which I'm really surprised by. But she seems... What? So here she is. Hi, girl. Hi, girl. Who has the highest dexterity? Oreo. Oreo for sure. She's the littlest. What we're doing here today is I'm just going to answer questions. They can be about the Tiberius video, but I've also got plenty of other stuff we can talk about. And I'm sure if there's anything else you folks want to ask about, feel free. Feel free to ask. Just let's get the ball rolling. Let me know what you all want to talk about. And throughout the day, we'll bring in the other dogs. What are my thoughts on the D&D Creator Summit news? That's a great place to start, Nick H. Obviously, it seems here something interesting was the folks at Roll for Initiative, I think, or Roll for Combat. I think it was Steven said, you know, these sorts of summits are really common in other industries, and normally people never push back on what people are saying. It's always just sort of like a waste of time. But the thing is, when you don't have these sorts of summits like this in this industry, and you bring all these creators, and you also had, you know, some recent faux pas that still needed to be addressed. You know, I guess it depends who you ask on how surprising it was that it went the way it is. I'm so glad that the people who went were as excited as they were, or that's the wrong word, passionate as they were. I know, girl. To get some straight answers. You know, that they were not accepting just the sales pitches. And it seems, very much to their credit, that the folks at Wizards of the Coast also want to know what they need to do. And they want to figure out how to, like, best serve the community. Like, I think a lot is going to be determined by whether they actually carry through with their plans to do the next one, which they've said they do. So hopefully they stick to that. I think it is undeniable. I guess is the word I'm looking for. It's undeniable that there's going to be some friction still. Listen, these things are going to happen in ways that are not optimal, and that's another frustrating thing about it. I think there's a couple things. One is, let's see if Wizards of the Coast keeps doing it. And 2 is, let's see if the creators keep wanting to come. Because there were a lot of people there who were doing a lot of emotional labor on behalf of Wizards of the Coast, and they may not want to go again. You know, if people are there to talk about, for example, accessibility is one that some people I follow were really leaning on, really trying to get answers on. If they don't feel like they got the answers they're looking for, they might not want to keep going. And that's fine. They don't have to keep going. So that's going to determine a lot. You know, who goes to the next one, and do they do the next one? And how much do they improve by the next one? It seems like they're really trying to make an effort. The question is, are they making an effort? And that is an important thing that we just don't know the answer to yet. This is step 1. I saw a lot of people who were on Twitter, unsurprisingly, who were just looking for someone to be angry about. which I don't normally think is the case in our community all the time. It certainly wasn't. I think in the OGL, we had a more directed point of like righteous anger. And with the D&D Direct, sorry, not the D&D Direct, this is the Creator Summit, rather. With the D&D Creator Summit, I think there was still that feeling of frustration, and it got thrown onto creators as well. It's like, come on, like, you know that the only way to change this, like to actually see change from Wizards, is to let them know what we want and be in the room and like actually ask for change. But I'm someone who has been raised on the idea that you can only change the system from the inside because of my many, many biases and privileges. So of course I say that. There are plenty of people who maybe went to the summit and did not feel heard and were like, I'm not going again. Or they'll only go a couple more times and they'll be like, I'm not getting what I want out of this, and this is not worth my time and energy, especially their energy. So like, that's also totally fair. So I think honestly, this is not going to tell us as much as the next one is. But I think this told us a lot about the willingness that they might have to want to be receptive. And the question is, do they deliver on that? Because it's easy for them to say, yeah, we want to be receptive as long as it doesn't mess with our timeline for our projects and our products and whatever. Are they going to stick with that? And we don't know. So we'll have to see. Thanks so much, Nick. That was a great question. Higgy Baby wants to talk about the Mandalorian episode. I'm so far behind. I'm so far behind on the Mandalorian. I've only seen the first episode. So I don't, because I wasn't wild about the season premiere. I thought it was fine. Just not as good as like season 1, season 2. But I'm just behind. I haven't finished Last of Us either, which is a show I really liked. So I'm about halfway through that show, and then I need to catch up on Mandalorian. Danny asked, why do we call her Oreo? So we actually didn't name Oreo. And then pardon me. I see the other half of your question is the origin of all the dogs' names. Well, that's an interesting story. We didn't name Oreo because, pardon me, I was walking some other dogs, or 2 other dogs, before they got a haircut, and someone was like, oh my gosh, like, you have these dogs, they seem cute and healthy, and there's another reason that she asked me, which we'll get to when you see the other dogs. But they were like, my friend's apartment rules are changing. She can't keep her dog. Would you be interested in taking her in? I was like, sure, if it's not a good fit, my brother-in-law walks dogs. So, like, at the very least, if Oreo's not a good fit for us, he can find someone. But she's been a really good fit, despite the fact that my mother-in-law and wife seem to think that Oreo's a bully. She's not a bully. She's just rambunctious. They named her that because she has some black on her snout, and used to have more black on her tail, which you can't see. It's gone away. The origin of all the dogs' names, Wrigley is named after Wrigley Field because my wife is from Chicago. And Luke is named after Luke from Gilmore Girls because I proposed to my wife on the set of Stars Hollow on the gazebo. So that is why they have their names. Mike Bentley says, sounds like WotC just wanted it as an ad, but creators took control after a while. That is what it sounds like. Yep. And Hydro Dixon is doing a great job. That is absolutely what I'm hearing as well. Indestructiboy, who was deeply critical of Wizards of the Coast during the OGL crisis. He was the first person to report on the OGL news months before anyone else did. Very critical of Wizards of the Coast, was like, yeah, Dixon needs a raise. He was your MVP during this summit. He was listening to creators and giving them straight answers, even if the answer was, I don't know, let's talk later. That's an answer, It seems like, this is the other thing I want to talk about. It seems like a lot of the answers were, I don't know, good question, which, like, great, we appreciate transparency, but like some of them also, it's like, shouldn't you know? And this gets back to also like when Kyle Brink was doing his apology tour, which he might still be, but when he was in the thick of it, one of the questions was like, hey, who wrote the "they won and so did we" post on D&D Beyond? For those who aren't familiar, during the OGL crisis, they posted a very snotty reply that was unsigned by anyone, and then they realized that was the wrong move, and they should start acting like a company that can afford a publicity department. And Kyle Brink started being the new voice of things. And his answer when asked, like, hey, who wrote that, was, oh, I genuinely don't know. I just know that it wasn't me, and, I took efforts to make sure we improved our messaging. And I was like, okay, even if you believe him, which, listen, when you only have one source of narrative, you can play Are They Lying all day, and it's not that productive. Let's assume he's telling the truth. He should know. Like, my old jobs were all about making sure problems don't happen again. Even if I never dragged anything out publicly, you should still know who did it and make sure they don't do it again. Like, so that's the question is like, how much, I don't ascribe the D&D Creator Summit or many of the other Wizards of the Coast faux pas, not necessarily the OGL, but a lot of the others, I don't ascribe malice to them. But they do raise questions of competency that are hard to ignore. Someone sent a super chat. Braden McLean said, I just wanted to hop in for a short time. I wanted to say that even though I don't agree with some of the stuff you say, you do great work. Keep it up. Thank you so much, Braden. I really appreciate it. Oreo, do you want to sit down? Is that what's up? Yeah, I think you do. Thank you so much, Braden. I really appreciate that. Let's see. This is still people talking about the Creator Summit. I know. Yeah, Luke, comfort your sister without licking her. I'm so awesome face. Yeah, that's a good way to put it. Even if the Tiberius stuff doesn't bother you, the little things do add up, and they just contribute to the atmosphere around it. Not a question. Love how you bring up my past failings. Thank you so much, The Honk. I really appreciate that. Who do I follow? I guess it depends on the context. If you're talking about Oreo, oh, I can't let you out. Mommy's on a meeting, and I need you here so I can watch you and make sure you don't lick yourself. Luke, do you want to come up next? Okay. We're not going to do a vote. This time Luke wants to come up. Here's Luke. Yeah, Daniel, it's a good point. Whip-O-Matic, Daniel, you're all bringing up really good points. Party on the objective, you're appalled. I think we generally don't know why they invited anyone, and that's kind of been part of the problem is we don't know who gets invites to what or why. We don't know who gets free stuff or why. Listen, I don't need free stuff, but it would just be good to know, why people are getting what they're getting. Because there are people who get, like Ginny D got that big box of stuff, but she's like, I sometimes get nothing, and sometimes I get stuff, and it's just very confusing and, stressful. On a weird level, if you're doing stuff on behalf of this company, it's stressful to not know where you stand with it. Care to shout out an RPG YouTuber, someone with a smaller follower count? Legal Kimchi. Check out Legal Kimchi. Check out Geek Pantheon. Those are the two that are coming to mind. I know there are more that I'm just blanking on. Check out the Eldritch Lorecast. Check out Ghostfire Gaming. I know I've promoted them on my channel before. Yeah, Mike Bentley, the virtual side of the summit looks like they were having the most technical difficulties, which is not... It's not okay to do, especially when you're they're like, oh, we have rotating ASL interpreters. Great. That is a great sign of visibility. Unless the camera's not working. You gotta sort out your technical issues. Oreo's coming back. Magic Tor says, do I have any thoughts about the preteen adventures? No, I actually don't know what those are. I'm assuming, well, that's not entirely true. I think I've seen those books, but I don't know anything about them. So I'd love to know if you have a little bit more information. I know. Hold on, it just dropped. The chat just skipped ahead, and I lost my place. Sorry to hear that, Jcraft, that you had a Tiberius in your game. That is stressful. Yeah, Eric said that they're erasing the half races as well. I don't know if I agree on down the drain necessarily. I mean, I'll wait and see the finished product. I don't know. I don't know if they understand why the changes they're making are not necessarily required. I get this change. I really do. I just don't know if it makes as much sense as they think it does. But, we'll have to see. Dustin, it looks like your question got cut off. We'll see if you added it later. I just saw any thoughts on expounding your... we'll see. Can you give a summary of the Patreon-only content from the Tiberius episode? Essentially, a lot of it comes down to trust. It comes down to trust and intent. If Sam makes a joke, the butt of the joke is often himself. Not always. He's gotten it wrong. But often himself, and that is not the case with the joke in the episode 27. For more, there's more detail on that. You can check out the Patreon version for an expanded version, but a lot of it comes down to trust, intent, and honestly, delivery and timing. The timing of Orion's joke didn't work because it didn't belong in that situation, because it didn't cut tension in an effective way. So there's little aspects like that. A lot of people in the comments have also pointed out like the mitigating circumstances are also pretty fundamental difference there as well. Daniel, you brought up a good point. Creators aren't journalists. It's true. And when you're doing a summit like this, you have to factor in, and this is something they said at the summit, they're struggling with internally, is how do you sort of treat the people who are there? Do you treat them as journalists? Do you treat them as collaborators? Do you treat them as like people who want to work there someday? Like, you know, because a lot of them make their own content. So because they don't have that answer figured out, which I think also leads to the influencer debate, which was going on online. I don't care about that, but I get it. A lot of people have different definitions of influencer. So when you say that there's influencers there, what do you mean? But, you know, that can mean anything and maybe means nothing. So that helps kind of inform why they struggled with the format so much and might continue to struggle. We'll see. That is a tough question to answer because, like, what do you do? Like, how do you fix that? Thank you, William. Coffee C, you're right. She is not a bully. She's a baby. Have I seen the D&D movie yet? Garrett, no one has asked that yet. Good question. I have not. I'm really behind. I'm going to try to go this week, if not this weekend. But I just have not had a chance yet. Oh, there we go. Perfect timing. T-Rock says, opinion on the term influencer. I prefer content creator. I don't have a strong feeling. I don't think that the term matters as much as the role in the community. And I don't find influencer to be a negative term. Like, if people refer to me as an influencer, great. But then I understand why it's murky. I was, literally on a live stream. They were talking about, like, is Chris Perkins an influencer? Because if he tweets something, he influences it. He's also a member of the team. Does he count as an influencer? I don't know. Like, that's a great question. The people who work for Paizo, if they talk about D&D, are they acting in the form of influencers? It's a tough question because then you get into, like, are we industry professionals? Content creator is pretty vague. So I understand the debate. I just don't have a lot of I just don't have a dog in that fight, I guess is the best way to put it. I just don't whatever people use to refer to me, I don't care. I don't generally tend to discriminate in terms of like how I refer to other people. I tend to default to content creator, but also I'll say YouTuber, or I'll say actual play player, or I'll say actual play DM. But also the wrinkle there, or homebrewer, or third-party creator, which is a kind of outdated terms now. But I was going to say, the wrinkle is that so many people do more than one of those things. So I understand the debate. I don't have a stance on it yet. I think we're going to see it probably play out over the next couple of years. This is still a pretty new industry in general, let alone in our tabletop corner of it, of just like YouTubers and TikToks and all of that stuff. So I don't know. It's a good question. Alvaro, I did not work on Gilmore Girls. This was long after I only got engaged to her in 2019. So it just happened to be, I have a friend who worked on the Warner Brothers lot at the time. He was a tour guide, and I was like, I would love to propose to her on the gazebo. And he's like, well, they move it sometimes, so I have to make sure it's going to be on set that day. I was like, wait, they can move the gazebo? He's like, oh yeah, they move it around. Sometimes they move it to different sides. Sometimes they take it off entirely. It's like, what? They can just move it? Okay, cool. So, but it happened to be there that time, and we took her on a tour. We got to see the Friends stage that they have set up. We got to do a walkthrough. He got to tell us like the insider stories that no one else gets to hear, which I will not repeat here. And then she got up on the gazebo, and my friend walked out of the church. A different friend walked out of the church playing a guitar as our troubadour, playing our song, and then I proposed. So. Our song, by the way, since people are going to ask, is Tell Her This by Del Amitri. If you don't know it, it's very, very good. The reflection of my ceiling fan on my cabinet makes it look like fire flame at first glance. I'll take it. I get so self-conscious about the reflections during my videos. Salhara, yeah, that's a good point regarding the they won and so did we. I don't care. I don't want to know who wrote it. I want to know that someone told them not to do it again and took away their D&D login credentials, or D&D Beyond login credentials. So, Mike Bentley, that was a very strange conversation. Yeah, that they didn't seem to know what people wanted from the VTT. It was a very strange conversation. Brack666, maybe he doesn't want to know because he doesn't want to know. Maybe he doesn't know because he doesn't want to know. Idaflem, I'm so glad you enjoyed it. Thank you so much for watching. I'm catching up on the comments. Higgy baby, yeah, I mean, a lot of people, I think the question of spoilers around Tiberius' departure is such a weird one. I think it's reasonable to say, I think people are better about spoilers for what ultimately is resolved about Tiberius' character, but it kind of becomes essential information to tell people that Tiberius leaves for a lot of reasons, to manage expectations, to explain, the absence of the character on the cartoon or on future episodes or not in promotional art or whatever. So it is tough. I understand why, perceiving it as a spoiler mars your experience a little bit. I think we as a culture, or as a community rather, just don't think about it that way, but it's a valid point, something to be mindful of. Any advice for, this is from Girkwit, advice for prompting engagement during sessions. I run an online game, and whether due to table size or personality, there's often silence when nobody wants to lead and announce what they're doing. Pick someone different every time, but when you start to feel a lull, or, maybe not even a lull, maybe if this is something your group does a lot, pardon me, we offer you a description and then just point to someone and say, what do you do? Not point visibly, but if you're virtual, you can just say their name. Glenn, what does Hrogark do? The next time you do a description, next time you describe a room, say, Mary, what does Janasan say? What does Janasan think when they enter this room? Something like that. That's what I would recommend. Just get them, start putting on individual people and see what they do. Okay, Oreo, I'm gonna put you down. We're gonna pick up Wrigley now. The old man. Ugh. There we go, and there's Wrigley. Let's see. Datcat, why did I throw myself under the bus like I did in the Tiberius video? I said I felt it was adding problems to the table. Just curious to hear your thoughts on that. Yeah, I mean, there's a few reasons for that. One is Oreo. There's a few reasons for that. One is I'm starting to gain an audience, and it is worth managing expectations and letting people know that I'm not perfect, and I'm not always going to get it right. Another is it is somewhat inevitable that someone might find that actual play and find some things in there. I don't know what ones in particular. I flagged the ones that I thought of as, not awesome behavior. So I just put them out there early and said, listen, I'm aware. I know. I don't want someone to go and gotcha me and be like, hey, what about this? Yeah, I know it sucked. I don't like that I did that. So just acknowledging it early. And 3 is because it was the only way I knew I could get people to understand it really, really early in the video, what I was going for. And it seemed to have worked. The comments on that video have been overwhelmingly really, really positive. And I think it is because that opening sequence gets people to understand where I'm coming from and that I really am coming at this at a good faith place. Because it's so easy for me to say, I don't mean anything bad about Orion. Now here I'm going to talk about Orion for an hour. I totally get why people don't believe me. People don't think it's in good faith. People don't like what I'm doing. So to put it out there and be like, I'm really not coming at this as holier than thou. I'm actually going to finish answering this question, and then I'm going to go put Oreo in her mother-in-law's room. I know. But that really was my reasoning, is I don't want people to just think that I'm trying to slam this guy. I am not necessarily better than this behavior all the time. So, formatting it that way was the reason why. Okay, Oreo's having a moment, so I'm gonna go take her. So Oreo just needs to go. Oh, maybe she's good. She's playing with her brother. You gonna play with your brother? Go on, play with your brother. Play with her. Okay, we'll see what happens. Please let me know. I mean, I'm gonna scroll down and see if the crying is bothering people. Doesn't look like it. Okay, people are being good. If the crying bothers y'all, I apologize, but she did just get neutered. Okay, let me scroll up to where I was. We got the. I think we're just about in the right area. some wonderful questions here I'm going to get to. Why are my dogs so cute? I don't know. It's a great question. Did I already answer that? I think I might have. Yes, prompting online engagement. Love to ogle some bookshelves. Any chance of a shelfie on the Discord sometime? Maybe. It's a good question. I'm actually going to write that down. You know? Maybe that's something for the downtime channel that I never, ever update. Or for a Twitch live stream. Bookshelf show off. A lot of these are things I have not read. So you're also going to get my to be read list. I was not, Josh, I was not invited to the Creator Summit. I also don't know if they know how to get a hold of me. Because, like, we don't know. Like, we just don't have a lot of communication. But I've also set up a contact channel on my website now. But also, like, I don't know if they know who I am yet. Because they invited a lot of people who have much bigger followings than I do. So, what setting am I most excited to tear into for that future series that I mentioned? Probably Theros or Exandria. Actually, you know what? I'm really, everyone talks about Eberron. I've read very little of Eberron. I'm actually really excited to get into that one. Ooh, David Geip. I apologize for the pronunciation. Any thoughts on paid GMing? And two, any thoughts? Do I have any opinions on the Tabaxi? I want to do some paid GMing, so obviously I'm okay with it. I actually literally was like driving around my area, being like, hey, where can I like? Is there a game store in the area where I could like maybe find a community that like might be interested in that? Because I could do it virtually, but I would love to get in some in-person gaming again. And then as for opinions on the Tabaxi, I don't have strong opinions. I think they're fine. I think they're, from what I've read, pretty good cat people. Thank you for the super chat, David, by the way. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, I don't have strong opinions about them. They seem cool to me. But I don't think I've ever played with them or played one. I had an NPC that was a Tabaxi. That was a lot of fun. Because they were a Egyptian hairless Tabaxi. I talked about this in my West Marches game that like dressed like Russell Brand. And I think had an accent as well, but it wasn't a Russell Brand accent. I don't remember their voice now. But yeah, but I like Tabaxi fine. I don't have any strong feelings about any of the races really, like generally speaking. I'm sorry, and I didn't answer the end of Josh's question. Would I go to the Creator Summit if I was invited? Yeah, for sure. Like I said earlier, I think there's a value. This is my bias coming in, but I think there's a value in trying to like change things from the inside, or at the very least being in the room enough to say, hey, don't do the thing you did. But I'd also be like very curious to see what it's like, and also like it'd be cool to meet some of those people. I'd take a trip to Seattle if they paid for it, sure. What are some of my non-D&D hobbies? Watching movies and TV, although I'm behind on those, and reading when I do that. Got another super chat. Thank you so much. Found me through the first, this is from Saint Gecko. Found me through the first Tiberius video and have enjoyed my content since. Here's hoping I can start doing weekly recaps at some point. Yes, thank you. Weekly Critical Role recaps. Yeah, we are almost halfway to that goal, which is outstanding. We've made up a lot of that distance just in the past like week. We've probably got about 150 patrons in the last week. And I know some of those people are going to cancel their pledges, and that's okay. But it is really, really encouraging to see that. Yeah, that's awesome. How long is this stream going to last? I'm probably going to stream for about another hour from now when I'm answering the question. Maybe an hour and a half. What breed are my dogs? And also Luke is like a bigger Oreo. Wrigley is a Morkie, which is a Maltese Yorkie. Luke is a Maltipoo, which is a Maltese Poodle. We think Oreo is a Yorkie Poodle. We're not sure. Because again, she was not ours initially. And literally, yeah, Luke is like a bigger Oreo, as is Wrigley at a certain point. And, it was because I was walking these two dogs that looked so similar that this woman was like, hey, my friend has another dog who looks like your dogs. Would you be able to take them in? So that was why, which helps a lot because my wife has some dog allergies, but not to these dogs. So getting dogs like this is really, really helpful. Oh my gosh, got some super chats. UnCTR Laby Excite said, hey, love my vids. Is there anything you're excited for gameplay-wise that we heard from the D&D Summit? Nerd Immersion tweeted Warlock pacts at level that let you choose your spellcasting ability modifier. No, I'm not a huge mechanics guy, so I thank you so much for the question. Thank you so much for the super chat. I'm not a huge mechanics guy, and I don't know. I from what I've seen or heard, I don't have a lot of strong feelings yet, other than wondering what they're doing. And I want to get to that in a minute. I'm gonna expand on that in a minute. Let me see what this other super chat says. Oh my gosh, we have a bunch. Who's my favorite D&D content creator who I'd point to? Who I'd recommend to more seasoned players? Mine is Point At. I mean, I mentioned Illegal Kimchi earlier. I should actually just look at my my list of creators who I'm subscribed to. Let me see. Who do I subscribe to? Sly Flourish, who has been a blogger for literally like more than a decade, since the 4th edition was out, but has a very smaller YouTube presence. Check him out. Flute Sloot, Roll for Initiative. Those are much smaller channels. And Tulok the Barbarian, Barbarian. It's a mix of barbarian and librarian. So those are useful ones. Obviously, there's other ones. More of you are probably going to be familiar with, like Ginny D, or Jordan with the PH is silent. And I recently have started listening to Asians Represent. So those would be useful ones, I think, to start with. Adding to your last message, you hope to do the same for Sorcerer. I don't have. I like I said, I don't. Maybe because I don't have a lot of strong feelings about the Warlock or Sorcerer in general. I just don't have any strong reactions to what we're hearing yet. Sorry if that's a disappointing answer. I just don't have a lot of strong opinions about those yet. But we'll have to see what they actually look like when they're implemented. Mal at T, thank you so much for the super chat. Currently watching CR Campaign 1. You're on Cindergrove Revisited. Tiberius was frustrating to watch as someone who loves to play sorcerers and loves Dragonborns. That is understandable. I've seen a lot of people talk about that, where it's sort of disappointing that it took so long for us to get another sorcerer on Critical Role, and if we finally have 2 now, and to get another Dragonborn, which has never happened with a party member. So, yeah, that's it's a bummer because I understand there's like it's a little too reminiscent. So I get it. It's just it's frustrating, but I do understand it as well. I don't have a more satisfying answer than that, unfortunately. I just wish it wasn't the case. All right, let's see. Yeah, so Bashing Through asked, will I continue to do a breakdown of each episode now that Campaign 1 is, now that we're done with the Tiberius arc? Yes, absolutely. I realize that because the Tiberius video doesn't end with me talking about the next Critical Role video, just because there was so much going on in that script, I forgot to include it. But yes, on... not tomorrow, but a week from tomorrow, the next video comes out about episode 28. They'll continue to be bi-weekly up until we get 1,000 patrons, which we were at 472. And then they'll go weekly. So, but yes, that is very much the plan. Hetheron, thank you so much for the super chat. I get a lot of inspiration and help from watching live play shows. Can't express how much the breakdowns I do give me better insight. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Thank you so much. You folks are just asking, like, you can ask questions with your super chats, but you're just using them to say nice things. It's so nice. Are there any other D&D shows that I like that are not Critical Role? Yeah. I'm behind on this one as well, but I'm behind on Worlds Beyond Number, which I talked about on my shorts channel, or my, in a short, which is Brennan Lee Mulligan, Abria Iyengar, Erika Ishii, and Lou Wilson doing a D&D 5e live play. It's a podcast. It's really, really recent and really good. What else have I listened to in the past? Of course, the moment is now I'm blanking on all of them, but I used to listen to a bunch of them. Skyjacks, which is a podcast as well, which I'm, again, well and truly behind on. There's a lot more that I want to listen to. Like, I want to get into Not Another D&D podcast. I've got some like first episodes saved on my Patreon or my podcast app, like Venture Maidens is on there. So there's a few more that I want to look into, and like High Rollers is one I've heard great things about. Yeah, I'm trying to think what else. What else would I recommend? I'm blanking. I'll probably end up thinking of more throughout this stream. Yeah, Alan Papercuts. Sometimes that is what you have to do. You stop playing with someone and then you resume and they just are not invited. That might be a solution. I think we are going to resolve a campaign that we put on pause because of COVID and because of some friction with some players. I think we are going to resume it, play just a few more sessions, and then wrap up the campaign, and then maybe I'll invite some others to a new campaign. Yeah, Matt Taylor, you said you like my GM vids. It's just a little hard to use for the non-D&D games like the ones you play. That's something I'm going to be looking at more going forward. I'm going to start talking about some other games as well. Being able to basically try to make some of that information a little more accessible. Right now, it's very useful to make a lot of stuff about D&D because I know that system a lot better, and it's kind of helpful to like get some of these thoughts out there that are so D&D specific, so that I can kind of have them out there and then move on. I'm trying to find like a different rhythm. Probably next year, I'll be like balancing games a lot more. Because like otherwise 1D&D is going to dominate or whatever they're calling it, because they're not calling it 1D&D now, but the re-release of D&D and the adventures are going to sort of dominate the narrative. And I'm definitely going to still talk about it. I'll probably review adventures on the channel, but there's other things I can do as well in this space to help uplift smaller games. That is my goal. Oh my gosh, the Flaming D, no super chat question, just a super chat. Thank you so much, the Flaming D. I really appreciate it. Thank you. Yeah, Whip-O-Matic. Yeah, there is a chance that they're going to get exactly as monetization heavy as video games. I hope they don't, but I think everyone kind of knows that is definitely on the table, and we don't necessarily think there's a strong reason why they wouldn't, which sucks. And even it's something that could be good. It's their property; they can make money off of it however they want to. The question is, do they do it in a way that adds value? We don't know yet. We can guess based on how they've behaved in some other aspects, but we just don't technically know yet. Pat the Players, this is about my self-criticism in the Tiberius video. Thank you so much. Yeah, I agree. I think it helped. I'm glad that you felt like it helped drive the point home. Let's see. One of my favorite TTRPGs to play outside of D&D. We've been playing Monster of the Week. I think we're going to pause because the GM is starting to get burnt out. Which, listen, he just had a baby. I'm shocked that he was like, let's start a campaign. I was like, really, dog? Like, have you talked to your significant other about how much time you're going to be spending playing this? But I think, is finally burnt out. So we're starting to talk about Pathfinder. But we literally were like talking about it all day yesterday. And we're like, wait, we should wait until the last player reads these texts before we start like scheduling things and picking character classes. So I'm excited to look into that. Really liking what I'm seeing of Shadow Dark. I enjoyed Dungeon World when I played it. I played some of Star Wars Edge of the Empire. I wish I liked it more, but I really think it was also just the group. It was just too big a group. So like we had people like our healer who just like didn't feel like he got to do anything, or like wasn't given the time and the space to do things because of the size of the group. Who were always like talking over like his cool things, which is just a problem with the group format and the group size and maybe our play style. This was years ago. I don't think that game is even in print anymore. There was just another one I was just thinking of. I enjoyed the Dragon Age game. My issue with it was that I didn't play Dragon Age, so like I just felt like all the monsters felt really similar. There wasn't anything that made them stand apart to me. So that's why I'm really excited to check out Fantasy Age. That's one that I'm really looking forward to trying. As a GM, how do I feel about players feuding? Sam and Orion interactions, while funny at the time, were kind of toxic at later rewatch. The Sam and Orion interactions bothered me for a long time. Because of that reason. I just felt like it was not fun. It's not fun. The difference between player character friction and player friction. I don't like player friction. I don't like when players feud at the table. Could I give my opinion of Orion's level of engagement with certain aspects of the game and the show? I think there's a huge difference in rule literally between the different players, for example. It's tough to say. I think the issue, is, I see the clarification, Magic Tour, pre-written adventures. I'll answer your question in a moment, but I understand. Could I give my opinion on Orion's level of engagement with certain aspects of the game and the show? I mean, I think obviously we know that there were mitigating circumstances that affected his engagement level, so it is a tough situation. Setting that aside, I think that not having the engagement was a big problem. I think I got into it a little bit in some of my videos, but it's tough to see what he was. I think he was very much engaged in his own rules, and yet didn't seem to like comprehend them or not, or wasn't sort of reading them in the right way. You know, I've seen accusations of cheating. It would not surprise me if it wasn't deliberate. I genuinely don't know. I don't know the man, as I'm sure has been very evident. And it is when someone isn't clocking their own rules on that level, it's tough. It's tough because there's a lot of other people in campaign 1 who also have very similar problems. So, like as an example, throughout the entire first campaign, Orion, play with your sister. She's crying for you. Oh my gosh. Okay, we're gonna try to pick up 2 people at once. Okay. Throughout the campaign, it is very common that Liam got sneak attack confused. He knew that he got sneak attack from advantage. He kept thinking that having sneak attack for other reasons granted him advantage. And it got stuck in his head, and he never was really able to shake it. And that's part of the problem of starting a character mid-level, new system. That's a tough thing to overcome. Sometimes something just gets stuck in your head wrong. It takes a long, long time to unlearn it. We didn't see Orion get a chance to unlearn some of that, but we also know that like there was mitigating circumstances, you know. So it would have been different if he had been as focused on the role playing as he was on the rules, because like people complain about, you know, Orion getting the sneak attack, or not Orion, Liam getting the sneak attack wrong, Risha getting her spells wrong. They were focused on the role playing. Right, like I mean that was their priority. If it was more important to Matt to like hold their feet to the fire and get them to learn those rules, he wouldn't have looked things up for them. You know, he would have just told them like, look it up, get it right, read it to me. But that's not how he plays. That's not his style, because he's more focused on the role playing as well, at least for that group. So because Orion was so fixated on like his rules and the cool things he could do, but also was getting them wrong, it does seem like that affects, you know, engagement, and affects like what he's prioritizing, and like makes it feel more like cheating, even if that is not what was happening, which I genuinely don't know either way. I've seen the accusation. I don't know, man. Like he seemed to think that Fly was a second level spell, and I don't know if that was a mistake or deliberate. Who knows? Who cares? Whatever. He's not at my table. It was 8 years ago. There's only so much that I can like speculate on that front. Adrian, I hope that answers your question. I hope that makes sense. Magic Tort, pre-written adventures. I like them. The ones I've read, I want to read more of them. I have some that I haven't read that I own. Oreo. Spade girl. So because of that, like, none of them are perfect. And some of them are imperfect in pretty profound ways that we need to, like, tell Wizards of the Coast not to do again. Others of them are just flawed in the way it's like, this is not going to be right for your game necessarily, and it's hard to fix that, you know, for everyone. So they do a lot of helpful work for people if you need help with certain things. I often don't, because it's sometimes just faster for me to make up an adventure on my own. So, but also, like, it is really nice just to be like, hey, I don't have to do a ton of prep for this session. I'm just going to grab the book, read this section, and run it straight out of the book. So there's virtues to both. I did a whole video about it, but I'm going to talk a lot more about specific adventures later on this year and next year. Some of them from Wizards of the Coast, probably some from other publishers as well. Just Squire, good to see you. And no, as far as I know, my cabinet's not on fire. It's just the light. Matt plays games. Asks a hypothetical. Critical Role is never broadcast and never becomes a financially promising piece of media. Does Orion still get ousted? I'll take you one step further. They never end up playing weekly, and he doesn't get ousted. Because that changed the style of the game. I mean, I think also streaming it and having other people like respond to it changed it as well. But I think honestly, the change from playing once or twice a month for like 8 or 9 hours to changing systems, playing streamed where like Matt has to make sure that people like think that he's being fair, playing for shorter bursts but more frequently, so everyone's more invested. Everyone at the table is now more invested in what's happening session by session. I don't think it would have happened. Obviously you hope that's the case, right? We don't know at one point his personal mitigating circumstances took effect. They may have still happened, but you hope not. Happy Chap, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. Let's see, what do we got? Phantasmagoria says Wizards of the Coast is playing the addition through subtraction game. This is people talking about Wizards of the Coast and 1D&D or not 1D&D anymore. The reason they're taking out the half races is because it is very strange and weird, and there's not really a way to do those in a way that doesn't feel like a racial thing. They feel it's sort of a baby in bathwater situation, but also I get it. You know, the concept of race and species in D&D is so bizarre that any sort of like, I know when they were trying to rename it, it was like at a certain point I was like, the problem isn't the renaming. The problem is that we have different groups of people who have superpowers. And if we try to give them a name that's human, like linked to humans or animals, it doesn't match because there's nothing in the world. There's no people in the world who have a superpower just because of how they were born, right? That's just not a thing. This is a very fantasy concept, and no one really is asking for that to change. Like, no one's asking for them to say like, "Hey, don't have elves have powers," right? That's not a debate. So we're all trying to figure out like, what's the best way to ethically convey this very weird concept. I don't think we're gonna find a solution for that, really. I think there's better answers, like heritage or ancestry, which is what we're seeing in, Pathfinder and the Black Flag playtest. But I just don't think that's. I don't think it fixes the problem because I think the problem is kind of stuck with D&D. So I understand why taking out the half races helps though, because it's that friction of, well, if these are different alien races, for example, how would they be able to breed? If you take that out, you can treat them more as individual species and lean more into them as like separate lines, separate lineages that have no relation to each other. I don't think that fixes as many of the problems as they might hope it is, but it gives me a better sense that they at least understand. I don't know. When they changed it to species, it felt like they understood that there was a problem but didn't know what it was. So taking away the ability for them to breed doubles down on that. So at least they understand like where that is problematic, but also it seems like from what we're hearing at the Creator Summit, they're still looking at counterpoints to like not call them species. So do they understand the question? I don't know. I don't know what the solution is. I just don't know if they know what the problem is. Maybe that's the best way to put it. But this is something we're going to talk a lot more about probably when they have a final answer. Because right now this could change. This could change immediately. It probably will change. So I'm not getting bent out of shape on whether they include half elves or half orcs. Like really what they could do is just look at orc and elf had a baby, I think is the name of the product. It's on the DM's Guild. I could just look at that and be like, hey, can we like call them in? Be like, hey, can you please help us find the best way to convey some of these answers that's not going to take more than 3 pages for the new player's handbook? There's a way to do it. I just don't know what it is because I'm not an expert in that subject. Ryu Shinden asks, do I think Tiberius by himself is a great character? Yeah, I think Tiberius has some great moments. I've highlighted them on some of my videos. I think he has some terrific moments. I think he had the potential to be a much better character than he ended up being. But I think he has good moments. I think he's not my favorite, but that's preference. He could have been great. Do I believe Critical Role having a Tiberius shows the newer community how to deal with that type of player? I mean, obviously that's my hope with my channel, is that by like translating, hey, this is what was happening, we have a better sense of it. The problem is it's hard to watch those episodes, And also, like, it's not just because of his behavior. It's like those are episodes with a lot of bad audio and like bad stuff like that going on. So I think to a certain degree, yes, but there's also such a tough barrier to entry at that point anyway that I think, unfortunately, the early episodes of the show are just really tough for people to get into. So to a certain degree, yes, but not for as many people as I would like. Maybe that's the best answer to that question. Smutne Jajo, thank you so much. I really appreciate that. Yeah. I didn't want to get into any creator drama. I'm never going to tell you what the other channel is, or the other channels, I should say, that make content that I'm not a fan of. Like, I'm not going to do that. So thank you. I appreciate that. Let's see. We're talking about the... You know what? Yeah, Irk the Jerk. I do kind of feel like the vest would have smelled. Was he washing it? I don't know. No, I mean, as I said in the video, I don't know. It is very much this is bothering me because it's him, not because of the individual behavior. I think that's the best answer I have on that question. But I'll see. Yeah, it might have smelled. It's very possible. Let's see. Yeah, by the end of the Underdark, you had pretty much gotten burnt down on Orion. Yeah, I mean, that's fair. It's not fun. Because I think episode 13 especially. Episode 11 and episode 13 have some of the roughest Tiberius moments until we get to the end of his run. Does it feel like 1D&D is less impactful, smaller step forward, now that it feels more like a version 5.5 than a 6th edition? All right, let's talk about 1D&D. Because I finally was able to put into words my problem with what's going on. Now, I'll say, by the way, what I'm about to say was probably said about 4th edition into 5th edition. It's probably said about 3.5 into 4. Almost certainly said about 3 into 3.5. Like, now it is my turn to be the grognard. I'm aware of that. I'm aware that this is subjective, and maybe they'll deliver. You know, I love 5e, or I love 5e as it initially came out. I think it's gotten a little clouded since then. I think they're so focused on compatibility that they are not focused on a design objective, and that really bugs me. And I don't think I'd have been able to put that into words until recently when they were like, it's just another version of 5th edition. We're just like revising it a little. It's like, okay, if that's the case, just put in a new index, errata the ranger, and move on. Like, don't do what you're doing. Don't make this a complete redesign. Like, or come in and say, hey, listen, we know that people are frustrated that the lower levels are so much more lethal than the higher levels for like only 3 levels. So we're just adjusting the balance to make sure that you're having a more consistent play experience and making it high fantasy. If they would just say that, great. But and we see this in things like the inspiration mechanic, or where they're like, okay, we don't like what inspiration does. So what should inspiration do? I'm like, cut it or have it a plan. Like, have a goal for inspiration, or cut it out. You don't need inspiration in the game if you don't have an idea for it. I think they're so focused on the idea that it's compatible, that it's backwards compatible, that it's keeping them from designing it in a way that, like, what if they just had a chance to make a new edition of the game? Like, or just do a 3.5. Like, just stop, like, either make something new and have a design goal, or sit down. It really bothers me. If all you want to do is update it and make it more readable, we could absolutely get a new Dungeon Master's Guide. That would be totally fine with me. But for the Player's Handbook, throw in some errata and give us a better index, and then you're done. Or give us a design objective. I think it's so weird that, like, and by the way, this is subjective, right? Like, I might like the finished product. I just don't like what I'm hearing right now, which is fine. People said that during the playtest for D&D Next, and it turned out 5th edition was good. At least I think so. But also, like, I think when we saw the video, the interview with Jeremy Crawford about the Paladin and the Druid, and they were like, very much like, yeah, we're not sure, this is what we're thinking, but we also don't know if people are going to like it, so we're trying it. And some people were really relieved. They were like, oh, now we get to see the designers at work. I was like, I don't know, this doesn't change anything for me personally, but we'll see. I will definitely still check it out when it comes out. Probably for my channel, I'll end up having to buy it, but either way, I'll check out the rules. They'll probably put some free ones online. I'll give it a try. I just am wary. But then again, people probably said the exact same thing about the playtest for D&D Next. But I feel like I feel like they had a design objective for that one. Even if the design objective was, let's make it compatible with all the other versions of D&D. That's still an objective, right? That's still a goal. Whether they accomplished it or not is a different subject. At least they gave them something to start with. I just don't see what that is for this one, which bugs me. But again, we'll see. I could be totally wrong. I'm very prepared to be wrong. I hope I'm wrong. I really hope I'm wrong. Dr. Banner with a 4 in there. I really hope you get a chance to play as well. Nick H, without getting into spoilers, how do I feel about Tiberius being removed from the campaign, then slightly reintroduced later during the Chroma Conclave arc? I think that scene works really well. I think both those scenes work really well. I think that I mean, we'll get to them when we get to them, but I really like those scenes. And I think that those are very respectfully done, but also very impactful and very powerful. I mean, I have friends who did not like Tiberius at all. Obviously, a lot of people don't. But I had friends who I was talking to about it as they were catching up who did not like Tiberius at all, and they were like, oh my gosh, these scenes with Tiberius are like great. And it's like, yeah, it's because he's being played by Matt, and there's a very clear objective for this scene. It's a very different. He's an NPC now, because we are going to see Tiberius again as an NPC for some closure, and I think those are really well done. Let's see. Content creator and influencer are different things. They overlap, but don't always. Plenty of content creators and influencers. Yeah, I feel like it's just murky territory. So, I mean, maybe. I don't have any strong feelings about anyone's definition of either. It's really the best way I can put it. Can we talk about part of the Tiberius issue being players uncomfortable that a change of system made their character less powerful? How would I recommend handling such a system change? Honestly, now that we've seen how bad it can go, I would say give the player a chance to make a new character or completely be more willing. I guess this is what I would say. Be more willing to make adjustments to the character throughout. I mean, they were playing with it. I don't think that was the entire problem. But make sure the player knows, like, hey, if this is not working, we can reskin this. You know, we can pick something new. I would have just said, like, hey, man, switch to Wizard. You're going to have a better time. But that's probably not true, because his playstyle very much was, like, the meta magic of sorcerers and all that. I would have just set him down and been like, listen, this game has different design goals. Like, you are not going to have the same high numbers that you did in Pathfinder. Because that's the friction as well, right? They were all dealing with it a little bit, but, you know, for him to be like, oh, wow, like, all my stuff is less powerful, and he felt less powerful. I don't know. That's a good question. I think it depends a lot on the player's playstyle. For him being such a power gamer, which is really what he is. I've never called him that in the channel, but that's very much what he was. I don't know. I mean, I tend not to play with people who are like that, so... who are only like that, I guess I should say. I play with people who care about being powerful, but they also care about the story more. They care about whatever other aspects of the game as well. So it's tough when that's such a bugaboo, because it's also like, you don't know yet. You don't know until you try it for a while. I don't know. It's a great question, Annika. I don't know what the solution is to it. I mean, clearly we saw one solution. I don't know if that's the only way it has to go. It's a bummer. Phantasmagoria says it's possible that Matt took too long to take him aside because he's not confrontational. Maybe. We obviously don't know what conversations were and weren't had. It is speculation, but I do wonder how early he was taken aside and how often he was taken aside. Ultimately, I think the fact that he was taken aside and the behavior didn't change that much is frustrating, you know, for a DM and for a group. That's really what it comes down to. But also by the final episode, he was trying to change some behavior, just other behavior was getting more disruptive. Yeah, I mean, that's a good point from Whip-O-Matic as well. It's actually pretty rare that you switch systems but keep the same characters mid-campaign, especially around like the mid-range levels, which is pretty high level for most D&D campaigns. Most people don't even get to 7 or 8. Random question. Would I allow a player to find Steed a Moorbounder if they stat blocked it as a Panther? Sure, that sounds good. Sounds fine with me. I had a player do a find Steed. It was a wolf before. You could just use wolf as well. Use the wolf stats. They're not super powerful, but keep them as or I think that was dire wolf. I don't remember. But yeah. I'd be fine with that. Stefan said jumping in mid-campaign kept you from starting Vox Machina for way too long. Yeah. It's a tough dilemma because they wanted to keep their characters the same and they didn't want to restart anything, which is great. It's awesome. And it helped that they had like a clear sense of who their characters were. But it's also quite the barrier to entry. Let's see. What do we got? Have a lot of speculation on who is an influencer and who's a content creator, which is fine. You guys can keep chatting about that. This is obviously like an hour ago, so not a lot added by me playing in that role. Do I have any concrete suggestions on how to change my attitude if you think you're starting to be that player at the table in a party with mostly very timid players? Yeah, it's tough when other people are not willing to take the lead. I think one step to that is to start welcoming people into scenes with you. Start encouraging people to be a part of things. Like as an example, if Orion hypothetically had like taken some of his errands and been like, "Hey, can I do X with this other player?" and then it becomes trying to like bring them out of their shell and have them help be involved with the party, that would be a different situation. It is about making sure you have a sense of community at the table. That is really what helps you from being that guy, is to not make everything about you and even if you're trying to help the party, but you're still doing it in a way that is talking over people. It's tough when you're just sort of like, something you can do sometimes is just in character, like turn to someone and say, "What do you think?" And just give them the space and give them the opening and the opportunity to speak on something. I've done that a lot when I started to get very conscious, not in the campaign I played clips from, but from other campaigns later on when I was very aware of my behavior as a previous character. I'd start to realize it happening again, and I would just turn to people and say, "What do you think?" And giving them a chance to sort of take the lead. So that's an approach that I think works really well. Currently rewatching Gilmore Girls with your girlfriend, yearly rewatch, and you're crafting a trivia night for your friends based on the show as you go. Yeah, sure. Here's a trivia question. Who's the best boyfriend of Rory? Because there is a right answer. No, I'm kidding. It's Jess. But I'm kidding. That's not a fair question. It's Jess. And actually, he's a bad boyfriend when he's dating her, but he's the best character of all of them. Because he comes back later and he's like a good character, as opposed to Dean, who became a garbage man. Not literally, he was just a garbage person. Trivia question. How many characters did Sean Gunn play before he was cast as Kirk? I think the answer is 3. Because they liked him a lot. Who are my top 5 guest characters during the campaign? Setting aside the fact that I'm a little bit behind on campaign 3, I know they've had some guests recently. Best characters, number 1 is probably Robbie, because he was fantastic. Number 2, I'd have to look at the list. I might say, who did Mika Burton play? I'm blanking on their character's name. Rini from campaign 2, probably up there. Who are some other critical role guest stars? Kasha and Zara, number 3 and 4, for sure. And that's really tough, actually. Do you go with Kari Payton from campaign 2, or do you go with Ashley Birch or Somali from campaign 2? You know what? Just because I can't pick another one, I'm going to say Chris Perkins from campaign 2 as Spurt the Kobold. Because that's the only fair answer. Is the virtual tabletop on hold too? No, the virtual tabletop's still happening. It's just going very slowly. 6th edition isn't on hold. They're just basically trying to rebrand what their rebrand is. They're trying to like clarify, I guess, what their design intent is. I've seen that the Matt Colville interview with Jackson Crawford has gone up. I haven't watched it yet, but that's a good question. Did I have any experience in content creation before making this channel? Yeah, I did. So I had for a couple years, from 2019 till probably like right around the time I launched this channel, I had an AuthorTube channel, which was not very frequently updated because it was a just tougher channel to like find content to talk about in a way that actually encouraged me to do the things that like I was supposed to be doing. Like the whole idea was like, oh, I'm writing novels, so I'm gonna make videos about it, and I was so focused on making videos that I wouldn't write the novels. You can still find it. It's called Michael T. Christensen, Tensen is how it's spelled. There's some interesting stuff there. There's at least one video I'm gonna steal entirely for a video that's coming out next month. Just completely re-record it and almost talk about the exact same stuff. And then before that, yeah, the actual play shows, we had a couple, and I was the editor for those. So that probably contributes to why the videos were as professionally, as not professionally, but as advanced as they were, I guess, at the time. People say that. I still look back at those early videos, and my mic is such a problem. But other than that, I think that people are I think the editing is what people notice about those. And that is something I'm really happy with. Thank you so much, Nick. I appreciate it. Let's see. Yeah, I do wonder how they're going to handle the Voragol situation campaign in the cartoon. But that is something we'll just have to see play out. They've already made a lot of big changes that I think were really smart. So I'm very curious. I don't think we're going to see Draconia in campaign 2, in the cartoon rather. I just wonder if we're going to get any of that stuff, I don't know. Apparently some more people are talking about Gilmore Girls trivia because someone else is a professional bar trivia host trying to come up with Gilmore Girls trivia for his bar trivia. I'm glad I'm bringing people together. Is it odd that I've essentially gathered a large conference hall to listen to me chat just because I like RPGs a lot? How many people are in the chat, actually? I haven't even looked. How many people do we have here? Right now, it looks like we have, 460? 450? Cool. That's cool. Yeah. It's, I don't think about it that much. I don't know. Like, that's the best way that I can answer that. It sort of keeps me sane. Oh my gosh, I just saw that Legal Kimchi is in the chat. I'm not at that point yet, but I just opened it up another window. Hello, Legal Kimchi. Good to see you. I wonder who else is here that I'm way behind on. Ziggy. Oh my gosh, Ziggy from back in the day. Welcome, Ziggy. I am not there yet, but I do see your question. Do I think Campaign 4 will use a self-created RPG system? Probably. I don't know. Probably. All right, I'm catching up on the questions. Let's see. What do we got? It feels like I actually am finally catching up. Okay, good. So people are saying they were not hearing Oreo whining. That's good. I'm glad to hear that. Oh, you're considering making YouTube videos, and hearing the dog makes you less self-conscious about it. Hope that comes across as not negative. No, that makes perfect sense. I totally get it. I'm very glad to hear that. More people should get into making YouTube videos. It's a lot of fun. It's weird. It's a very strange process, but it is a lot of fun. Jacob, thank you so much. I don't know if Jacob's still in the chat. They said they couldn't stay long, but I appreciate it. Eberron introduced races like Shifter and Kalashtar are awesome. I've had people play both in my games. Shifter, I think, was a 4th edition game, but I've had someone play a Kalashtar in 5e. It seems cool. Yeah, I'm very excited to get more of that. Nash asks, how do I balance Eric Hokra for an early level game? I've only had to deal with it once. And I think it was for a one-shot. I don't remember how we really handled it. I don't remember. I'd have to look into that race a little more to have that answer. I'm sorry that it's not a very satisfying answer. I'm just, again, because I'm not a big mechanics person, I don't remember all the Eric Hokra stuff. I know they fly. I don't remember how it works or what the limits are. Something that I would have to look into. Maybe that's a good example. Maybe I can make a video balance, showing the example. write that down. Maybe nothing will come of that. Maybe something will. Let's see. What else do we have? Boss fight with phases. Thoughts, suggestions. Man, I would love to do more of that. I don't tend to think that way when I design encounters, and I wish I did more. It's definitely something I'm going to be talking about more on the channel, because that's something that, Matt Mercer does a lot. It's something that can be done really well. It depends on what the objectives are, I think. I'm going to have to talk about that more in another video. It's sorry that I can't give a more satisfying answer there, Jonathan. It's just something I need to sit and think on. Yeah. I can't go down the road. I think there's something I'm trying to put my finger on and I can't. Sort of the pitfall of that is maybe the best way to put it is that you don't want them to just, I don't know. I'm trying to figure out the best way to put it, and I'm not coming up with it. So I'll have to think on this more. Let's see. Oh, that's cool. Anna K says that their GM said no racial flight until 5th level, because that's when other classes start to get cool things. Yeah, that seems like it would work for balance. What's the general area that I live in? I am in Ventura County. So Thousand Oaks, Simi Valley, Moorpark is the region that I'm in. That's where I'm looking for, hopefully maybe some people wanted to do some paid GMing. Or rather, they would really pay me for GMing. The only reason you're watching Critical Role Campaign 1 is to watch the Demystified videos after it. Jessica, that's so flattering. Thank you so much. Sarah, welcome. Ramona, I prefer Theater of the Mind, but I'm itching to get back into miniatures. My relationship with miniatures has evolved a lot, and that's something I want to explore more in an upcoming video. Legal Kimchi, by the way, who is in the chat, or at least was earlier, did a great video about miniatures. Go check that one out. Less so about how to use them in the fight, more so about the history of them and some of the ones that he likes, and they're really cool. I hope that's a reasonable way to represent that. But man, that video was good. Deadly Spark says, how should I deal with a player who takes in-character actions that affect his character personally? It also spills over to DM actions that affect him. Having a why are you doing this to me approach. It's tough. That's really tough. I think it is the ultimate thing to sit down and let them know is I think they're expecting you to just hand them things that are going to be awesome. And for you to sit down and say, listen, my goal here is to give you guys a challenge, gives you folks a challenge as you play through it. It's not just to have you have an awesome, fun time. Hopefully, overcoming challenges will give you the awesome experience. But this is not just going to be a power fantasy game. And if that's what you're looking for, then I don't think we're on the same page. And don't come on so hot. But I think that would be my guess is that's where that problem is coming from. Mike Bentley, I'm sorry to hear that you haven't had a good playgroup experience recently. That is a real bummer. VHS asks, after I mentioned someone making defensive videos of Orion, you had to go searching, and it was odd. Didn't find his whole series. We read his comments. What made me include it? I'm not going to confirm that we're talking about the same person, but if we are, I guess it doesn't matter either way. The reason I included it was to make sure people knew why that portion of the video was being kept behind a paywall. Because I talked to people. I mean, there were other reasons as well. I've definitely talked with fellow YouTubers. I was like, oh yeah, and one of the things I'm going to talk about in the Tiberius video is comedy and, and they were like, ooh, you want to put that out on YouTube? You want to have that out there? And that was getting me thinking about the other videos and, the people who had made other videos just about my video in general. And I was like, yeah, I don't think I do. I sat with it for a while before finally eventually deciding to do that. I mean, there's a reason that it's a long enough video as is. There's plenty of stuff in that video. It's also, I think, something that I think I sort of get into in the main video on the Tiberius, the final Tiberius video, is that it's kind of a red herring to just make it about the joke, right? There's a lot of other things happening in that video, or sorry, in that episode, that are probably a bigger contributing factor to his, that are certainly a bigger contributing factor to his departure. I think we all lashed on the joke because we had so little to go off of. So I think there's a certain degree of like the joke is not the biggest problem in that video, in that episode, really, which is why I'm able to sort of talk about what you can learn from that joke in the main video and then quickly move on. But I also know that so many people look at that and so many people talk about that as being like a double standard. So that's why I was like, well, listen, if you want to know why it's not a double standard or why there is one, but it's not what you think it is, there is more about it, but that's why it's kept on a separate channel. Because also we're at that point, it's not really DM lessons or player lessons. It's really getting into like the thrust of like, how do jokes work and why do jokes work? And it was more important to be like, listen, if you get something wrong, just apologize, ask later what you did wrong and get some clarification. If you want to get like the heady idea of why certain jokes work better than others, that's on the Patreon video. It's not essential, is my view behind it. Not everyone agrees, and I get that, but that was my ultimate conclusion. Spilled Pants says, don't know what happens exactly, but what are my thoughts on Tiberius being mentioned in videos after 27 and characters in general staying relevant after a problem player leaves? It's inevitable to a certain degree. I mean, I have a group that's going to resume play at some point. I got to get that group back together. And we are going to have to resolve the fact that that player is no longer in the campaign. And not do it in a way that is disrespectful. Like, I know that other people are not, like, I don't get along with that player anymore, but that's not fair to everyone else to say. And now, because that player's not here, their character gets brutally murdered, blah, 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 blah. They always died and they sucked the whole entire time. Like, that's not fair to everyone else at the table. That's not, like, the useful experience. There's something about it that's inevitable. I mean, if you want to maintain the continuity of the world, which doesn't matter to everybody, but if it matters to you, and if you watch Critical Role or my channel, it probably does. But if it matters to you, a certain amount of it is inevitable. And I think I used to be a little more petty about departures than I am now, you know? But I don't think it's necessary to be petty. You want to give them a send-off with some amount of grace that is maybe something you didn't get a chance to actually have when they actually left the campaign. You know, what's the quote from the Adventure Zone? Which I should have mentioned earlier. We're talking about actual plays, the Adventure Zone. You know, Balance and Amnesty are both really good. What's the quote from Adventure Zone? You don't always get to decide on how people leave your life. And sometimes it's sudden and sometimes it's not. And something similar happens when people leave your D&D groups. You don't always get a chance to decide, except when you're resolving how their characters depart, you do get a choice. You do get to have a say. That, you know, and sometimes it is okay to say, like, oh yeah, they left. They left, and you're not going to see them again because the story enforces that or makes sense, or it makes sense for their character, or because no one wants to linger on that, and that's totally fine. But there are times when you need a little bit more catharsis. So, you know, I might have more to say about that after I do my next character departure for someone who is no longer with the campaign, because the way that player left was very, very strange, and very, very complicated. And while I'm not going to get into any of that on my channel, I think the experience of that, once I finally get that game together, will give me a lot to say about that subject. And also, I'm sure we'll talk about it when it actually happens on Critical Role, which I don't know if I'll be able to time those two events to sync up, but we'll see. Do I have any advice for folks who are inspired to make videos in my style? Write a script in advance, otherwise you wind up spending comments talking about a vest in a way that is not very productive, or some of the other things that are in that first Tiberius video, which I had to then clarify. I didn't have to, I just decided to, because that video did so very well. It was like, well, shoot. Make a list of what you're actually going to talk about. I think that was sort of the problem with my Tiberius video mostly. The first one is that there were just a couple points that I wish I'd better articulated where I stood on that before actually sitting down to write it. You don't need to like have a full script. That's what I prefer to do, but that's not necessary for everyone. Even if it's just bullet points, this is the point I'm trying to make, and then actually do check it during your filming and make sure you got them all. That would be my recommendation. Let's see. XPD23, yep. JoeCat, yep. Do I think Tiberius had a negative effect on Dragonborns and Critical Role? I don't know. I mean, I don't know that anyone else, considering that so many other people keep playing elves, half-elves, humans, and tieflings, I don't know that any of them would have played Dragonborn. You know, none of them have ever played a dwarf. None of them have ever played well, no, Travis played a half-orc. But, like, only one of them's ever played a halfling since then. 2, technically. I just don't know. I don't know that I can rule out that, they would have played a Dragonborn. If not, I don't know. None of them have ever played a dwarf. So I don't think, until Matt played one for Exandria Unlimited, or guest star characters have played them, but I don't think, I don't know. I don't think so, but I obviously don't know what's in their hearts, but I don't know. So we'll see. I guess we'll see if they ever do play one, but I don't know that it's a guarantee that they would have. And you know what? None of them have ever played a full elf either. So I don't think it's necessarily the reason why. What's the weirdest system I've ever played? Everyone is John is a very strange game. But I don't think that's the weirdest system ever. I don't know. Yeah, that's a good question. I'm trying to think. I don't know if I would say, weird for me. Like, I played the Warhammer games, and those are like percentile roll under your stat. I think some of the Cthulhu games I played are similar to that, and that's definitely very, very different for me. Lasers and Feelings, which is like a die roll and you land on a spectrum. Yeah, I think honestly, the weirdest might be the Star Wars game, because you have such different dice in that game, where it is really just like, you have a completely different dice set and all their meanings are so radically different. That might be the weirdest. I don't know. That's a good question. I want to play Dread. I just have never gotten a chance. That's a pretty weird game. It's a pretty cool game. Let's see. Sarah, I mean, we just talked about the joke a little bit more since after your comments, but yeah, maybe. Maybe they judge Orion's joke more because of who's telling it, but I also just don't think it's a funny joke. I think just the fact that, honestly, that he has so many fewer jokes, and one of the few that he tells, that they're like jokes that he's telling, really didn't land. Mix that with also him getting drunk in the episode before, and that sequence really not landing for everyone, or not being as funny now, because like it doesn't, like it feels like he's stepping on the other people or being disruptive. Like, I think because there's so much less to compare it to, it stands out more. Maybe that's the best way to put it, as like a worse joke from him. Whereas for Sam, he tells so many jokes in every episode that if some of them don't land, they don't make as big a dent in how he's perceived at the table. And also some of that is, the bias of everyone else has got to keep playing for 8 years, which is a different thing than Orion got to do, obviously. Hector said, "Wow." I don't know what that is a reference to, but because this was like an hour ago. What system are? Oh, never mind. That was not to me. Let's see. Ooh, Demonac makes an animated D&D story called Tales from My D&D Campaign. That sounds cool. I'll have to check that out. That sounds cool. Make a little note of that for myself. Let's see. What do we got? Besides the bloody condition and minions, what other mechanics from 4th edition would I like to see brought back and adapted as needed for 5e? I have a draft about this somewhere, like in my scripts folder, that I need to get into, and dig up and like get back to that video. We'll see. I mean, people on Patreon might be voting for another 4th edition video. It's certainly doing well in the polls for the videos in June, so we may end up talking about it. Have I seen Corridor Cruise D&D show? No, I haven't. I'll have to check that one out too. There's so many things, so many recommendations. Corridor Cruise D&D show. I'll have to look into that later. Now you all get to watch me email myself. It's not a Mike Christensen live stream if he doesn't email himself. something cool that someone said in the chat. Oops, that's not what I meant to do. Let's see, where were we? You've heard rumors that Matt Mercer's taking the reins of Dimension 20 for a bit. Yeah, he's going to run at least a campaign, where, you know, probably a short campaign. We don't know how long, but he's going to run something on there, at least one. Let's see. Drakkenheim is good. Yep, that's something I'm excited to get into as well. Grim Hollow in general, I'm excited to read. The Real Housewives of Dungeons and Dragons, Arcane Arcade, a lot of good recommendations. Trials and Trebuchets. Let's see. How's the day? Oh, Geek Pantheon. Day's going well. Sorry for the delayed response. Day is going well. I'm a fan of your channel. Do I think Critical Role having a Tiberius type? It's so funny that both Geek Pantheon and Legal Kimchi are in this chat, and I didn't know that when I recommended their channels to you all. Do I think that Critical Role having a Tiberius type player shows new people how to deal with that type of player? I think I answered that similar question earlier. Since you've asked that question. Let's see what else. Any preference on music for games? That is something I'm actually working on right now. For my own games, I finally got Kenku FM working, I think. So I'm working on like rebuilding my playlists of D&D music, and hopefully start bringing that to my in-person games if I start running those. But at the very least, being able to run them online. Yeah, a lot of fiddly bits in Edge of the Empire. Yep, that's correct. I think I'm almost caught up on the questions. There are many, many, many. Let's see. Nope. Apparently, I'm not caught up at all. Oh my gosh. Oh my goodness. I'll probably stream for about another half hour. Let's see. Oh boy, I am not gonna be able to catch up with all of these. Oh boy. Let's speed run some of these. I don't even know where I left off. Wow, I am way behind. I'm just gonna get caught up. Where are we now? What are people talking about now? Question: if I could invite a Critical Role cast member to guest on one of my own campaigns, who would it be? Would I want different people for different campaigns? Yeah, different people for different campaigns, probably. I'm sure I'd get along well with Liam, and Sam, but like depending on the campaign, I think, you know, Travis or Laura. Sorry, I'm laughing because someone with my wife's name, or at least my wife's maiden name, just called me a hottie. How weird. Yeah, it would depend on the campaign, probably. I mean, I would honestly love to run a game for Matt because A, I think his styles and mine are similar enough, and B, he definitely gets the least amount of chance to play as a player. But you know, like Marisha would be a ton of fun to play with. Ashley, it would depend a lot on the campaign, I'm sure. Thoughts about Tomb of Horrors? I've played through it. I survived it. It is a very specific experience that is fun if you are going in for that objective. Party on the objective. Let's see. Really interested in the points. Gilbert says you're really interested in the points of light concept I introduced. Yeah, well, maybe that's what I'll talk about when I do another 4th edition video, because that's a big part of that. Yeah, Travis's enthusiasm, Travis's hype beast is a big part of it. Star Lady asks, what are some inside jokes at my table? Ooh, good question. I don't know if I have any right now, but it used to be... I don't know if we have any in the same way as like the oops, sorry. If we have anything like you know, the sort of like metagaming pigeon or any of the ones that you have on Critical Role. The what's the name of that song that they always sing? I'm completely blanking on the name of that song. What's the Make him away. Make your way downtown. That one. I don't know if we have anything like that really going right now. Yeah. Are we all boring? Are we boring players that we don't have those kinds of inside jokes? No, I think we just make a lot of media references. That's really what we do, because we're very, very like a lot. I mean, a lot of us are from LA or have lived here, so because of that, we have a lot of focus on that. I think is why we reference movies and TV so much. Yeah. Now the chat's gonna be filled with people saying "Making My Way." Still enjoying Worlds Beyond Number. I'm behind on it, but I really enjoyed what I've listened to so far. But I see it's difficult to get into DMing in 5e as a complete newbie. Yeah, a little bit. I think 4th edition was the easiest one to get into as a DM, but it was not the easiest game. I think 5e is an easier game. I just don't think the tools are as easy, which is a bummer, which is a real shame. Oh, there's another question I saw that I wanted to ask. What is? Mike Bentley asks, any thoughts on Cobalt Press's Project Black Flag being a revision of 5e, basically? It makes sense. I mean, it makes perfect sense that they would do that. They've been publishing 5e compatible content for years. They're not just going to want to make that all obsolete. That's kind of the issue everyone has right now, right? Is like 5e is still the name of the game for so many people. And it is a solid system. The question is just, what do you do with that? What do you do going forward? So that is a wrinkle that they have to overcome. So of course they're going to make their own system and put the stuff in it they like. I'll be very curious to see how it compares with the final product of 1D&D or whatever that is. I may end up being more of a Black Flag player or more of a D&D Wizards of the Coast player. I don't know yet. We'll see. Have I considered doing a Demystified on EXU Calamity? Yeah, absolutely. I will do a Demystified on Calamity at some point. I don't know how it'll be just 4 videos. It can't be just 4 videos. There's so much in those videos. It's Been a While is another good song they reference a lot. Let's see, what else? Unka Gear says, you're DMing a campaign that has been running for years, and your players feel like they have no clear directions to follow. You're trying to give them a gray dilemma for them to solve. Any suggestions? I'm not laughing at that question. I'm laughing at my wife typing woof. Where did I get this shirt? This shirt is from the World Builders Marketplace. I don't know if it's still up there, which is a bummer. Or this one, which is Old Navy. What? That's Andre. You know Andre. He was right there. He was outside the window. Stop it. Shh. Stop it. Stop it. Bad boy. Don't do that. What were we talking about? We were talking about how do you get your players to go on that. Do you feel like they don't have clear directions to follow? I think honestly, and we're going to talk about this a lot a little bit later this year when we get to a certain arc in Critical Role. Give them something they can't ignore. You know, it's their question ultimately of whether or not they're going to engage with it. Sorry, just dropped something that I don't want the dogs to eat. There we go. It's ultimately their question of whether they want to engage with it, but at least give them something they know they can interact with. You know, if you're familiar with Critical Role campaign 1, episode 39. Or with the cartoon, the beginning of season 2. Both of those are good examples of like, hey, some big thing happened you cannot ignore. Or even honestly with the Briarwood arc beginning. Like, it was pretty significant that they just sort of rolled into town. Now, in that case, they were already kind of invested in it, so it's a little bit of a different situation, but there are ways to do it in a more dramatic, a more engaging way if you're not already invested in the backstory. Someone also I saw in the chat as I was scrolling through the many comments was asking what I think of the cartoon. I think the cartoon is great. The Legend of Vox Machina cartoon is really good. It's not like always like 1,000% what I would do, but like I'm generally really enjoying that cartoon. Let's see. You were asking about the Old Navy one. You're pretty sure your wife got you the same one. Yeah, I like this shirt a lot. It's very comfortable. Although I think it is finally starting to get a little thin. First time DM asking for some philosophy on how to run a table for 7 newbie players and keep them satisfied, not either bored from being too easy nor overwhelmed. My wife keeps asking the funniest questions. I'll do that in a minute, sweetie. First time newbie players, I would actually say start with a home, like a pre-written adventure, but like change whatever you need to make it work for 7 people, but those are really useful to make sure there's always something going on. And if they start to get overwhelmed, to just scale things back. There's a lot of side quests in those, and some of them have a lot more of them, but otherwise a lot of them are more linear. I'll be making more videos about them, but I know Curse of Strahd is not for everyone. It's not everyone's taste, but it has a pretty good balance. Maybe read it through and see, like, okay, there's a really good balance here of, like, there's a clear objective, but there's also side quests if people want to get engaged with those. That might be my solution. Okay, my wife has encouraged me to pick up the other dogs too, so... We have Oreo. Do I think Matt being so aggressive against plate armor is the reason why I haven't seen so many players as paladins? Is what I'm assuming you're saying by pallies. Yeah, I mean, to a certain degree. I think it's why we haven't seen anyone wear plate armor again since Pike. Will I do Demystified for Mighty 9? Yeah, absolutely. It's called Critical Role Demystified, not Vox Machina Demystified. I'm definitely going to keep going through all their content, probably in chronological order. Let's see. Oh, my wife. Bye, Victoria. I love you. Enjoy work. Question. How many players point out metagaming, accidental, or intentional rules breaking that is hurting the enjoyment of the table without seeming like they're... Oh, sorry. I misread. How can players point out metagaming / accidental or intentional rule breaking that is hurting the enjoyment of the table without seeming like they're overstepping / critiquing the DM? That's really the crux, right? Like, the question is, I honestly think you may want to take the DM aside afterwards and just say, hey, something I noticed this player doing was this. I didn't call them out on it because it's not, I don't know how comfortable you are with me taking that role in this game. But I just know it bothered me. If it's really, really objectionable, ask everyone at the table, like, as having, like, hey, could we not do this? Like, at the table. But I hate conflict. So I so hesitate to recommend that approach. Take the DM aside and say, like, listen, I didn't want to step on your toes, but this is something I would love if you would talk to this player about. Or I can talk to them, but I just don't want to step on your toes. It's really tough because anytime someone talks to someone about another player, everyone always feels like their feelings at the table are everyone else's until you start talking about it. The player who's frustrated will think everyone's frustrated. The DM who thinks everything's fine will think everyone's fine. The player who thinks their behavior is acceptable will think everything's acceptable. So it's really tough to, like, you may want to talk to other people and say, hey, I talked to some others. We're not loving this. Could you, talk to them about this? Or, if it doesn't bother you, what can we do differently? I don't know. It's a tough situation because it's so specific to the people, but that's my general advice. Hi, Tyler. It's been a repeated issue with the party member, but you don't want to harsh the vibe. Talk to the DM. Make sure they know if they don't talk about it or they haven't talked about it. Ask them to, say, like, hey, listen, can I please say something to them if they don't say anything or if they did say something and it didn't help. If that doesn't work, mention something at the table. If that doesn't work, it's time to start having the hard conversations. But that's my general advice. Yeah, Ursula Cat, that's a good way to put it. Curse of Strahd's structure is really, really good. Its content is not for everybody. Its content isn't even for me. I love that adventure, but there's a lot of stuff in there that I cut or change. Let's see. What else we got? What else? What are the things that people talked about? Do I have a recommendation for a module with a whimsical feel? Ooh, good question. I would be curious if Wild Beyond the Witchlight accomplishes that. I'm sure there are some third-party ones as well, but I have not. Oh, and someone actually said Wild Beyond the Witchlight. The Game of Thrones showrunners said they wanted to make fantasy even a football player could enjoy, so they didn't add magic. My question is, do they hate magic? I do not want to speculate on the opinions of the people who were making the Game of Thrones TV show. Listen, like, they were clearly going for a very specific feel. I don't know if they hate magic. I think they definitely prefer a low magic setting. That is the least I will say. on that show and their feelings about adaptations. I don't know the books that well, but I have, you know, they've made comments in the past that I don't love about their own show, so it's tough to say. Yeah, that's a good point. Legal Kimchi says if you're running Curse of Strahd and if you want to make changes to the module, like a pretty radical change, consider getting She is the Ancient, which is basically reskins or rethinks Strahd as a female character. And now, while I think that changes a lot, that's pretty profound about that campaign in ways that sort of mean that it's something like very different than what I'm trying to achieve. That might be exactly what you're looking for. How do you help boost GM confidence as a player? Your GM is traumatized, and every time someone says anything he can possibly read as criticism, he's apologizing even when it wasn't directed at him. Say, every time they say it, like, listen, man, we're having fun. Oh, you're asking if football players hate Magic. Famously, football players hate Magic. Of course. No, right? Who's the football player who plays D&D? I can't think of his name. Yeah, Lunch Break Heroes has some really good videos about changing Curse of Strahd as well, about adding content. There's a lot of stuff on Reddit about adding content as well that's a little bit... Tyler made Strahd a plant. Players were surprised when they tried to sunbeam him. That would do it. Love the metagaming video. Had another character forcefully out one of your character secrets, and it sucked so bad. I can't wait for the longer video about it. I'm very excited to do the video about player secrets. It's just not the number one priority right now, but it is something we're going to talk about. All right, I'm going to go get Wrigley. Hi, Wrigley. Oh, you heard your name and you can... No, come on. You little stinker. All right. Here's the boy. Do I prefer to narrate the final blow in combat or to go with the how you want to do this method? I think both can be fitting, but curious about my thoughts. I do a lot of... I say paint me a picture, but yeah, I do let them narrate the... Johnny Stanton, yes. Johnny Stanton's the football player who plays D&D. I do narrate the final description. But I narrate a lot of descriptions, and then I give them a chance to tell me how they're finishing off the last character. We were already doing that even before I watched Critical Role. So very much in my style. To give them that sort of cool description. What are my thoughts on Ars Magica? I don't know much about Ars Magica. Not yet, anyway. Let's see. What else we got? Something you'd like to hear more about is character breakdowns / evolutions. Do you mean for Critical Role, or do you mean for just D&D in general? I'd be curious to know what you mean by that. Alexandra said, I'm scrolling back to see some of the ones I missed, said, for Calamity, I could do 2 demystifieds per episodes. There was so much in those episodes. Man, I was not kidding when I said I could teach a college class about EXU Calamity. I do not know how I would possibly format that demystified, but I know it's something I'm going to have to talk about at some point. Player secrets. What is one that's been particularly impactful for me, good or bad? Someone said they think I'm just grabbing different dogs and grabbing the same dog and calling them different names. I will put all 3 on camera before the stream is over. That is something I promised you. Oh, hey, stop licking. Stop licking. You just got spayed. You can't lick. Sorry. See, I'm talking to another dog. Definitely talking to another dog and not just talking to the floor. So there's definitely more than one dog in this room. Hi, Oreo. What was the question? Player secrets. What is one that's been particularly impactful for me, good or bad? I was really bummed that we didn't get a chance to play it out. There was a player in my first Tyranny of Dragons game who was secretly a dragon. And then we had a TPK, and so it never ended up mattering, which was a bummer. I'm trying to think of some others that were like major. Yeah, I mean, I've had a few that just didn't get to come to light because the campaign didn't last long enough. Yeah, there's one Microsoft Draw game right now that I don't think is ever going to end up being relevant again, which is a shame. It's like I think I kind of missed my window to have it be a relevant moment in the campaign, because the campaign's going so long that I think they all forgot about it. Like when the character creation, they had a cool link between them, and it's a bummer that they probably, if I tried to bring that secret back, would not remember what it was in reference to, and it wouldn't have as much power. How much backstory do I like my players to come in with? I think a big player DM disconnect is how integral player backstory is to the plot. Yeah, that is a we're gonna do a whole video about that because it's something that I think is really relevant to like how much backstory is useful and how much of it is disruptive, you know, and it depends a lot on the secrets. Because a player's secret isn't directly put out there, it doesn't matter. Disagree. I mean, that's a fair point. Maybe a better way to put it is that I don't think if I brought it up now, I would get the dramatic scene of it playing out because I don't think the players remember that it was in there. I could be wrong. I may have to ask that player separately and be like, hey, listen, do you remember that you said this about your character? If it came up again, would you know what I was talking about? I actually have to ask two people that because it would affect both of them. Yeah, what is Spade? I don't know what that... Oh, Spade. The female version of neutered. She was, fixed, so. Let's see. Your character secret that got outed by metagaming is that there was an evil demigod in your loot. Yeah, I had one who was... You know, a player, this is the one I think about a lot. It's not the only one. We've had a few. But I had one where a player was working for someone who was bad, you know, and wanted something sinister from another party member. But, like, part of the story was that he did not want to be doing this. Like, and the question was going to be, like, okay, how far is he actually going to take this? And then another party member was asking a lot of questions about it. And I was like, come on, just let this play out. But it all comes down to misalignment, right? I mean, like, if, for example... We're talking about Critical Role. In Campaign 2, the party members all wanted to do secrets because it was so much fun to have, like, secrets or things from their backstory and, like, major plot beats. Like, it was so much fun for Campaign 1. Having it all play out in Campaign 2 was something they were really looking forward to. But because of how they created their characters, they were all very cagey early on because they all created characters like that, which is a very easy trap to fall into. We'll probably talk about it more on this channel. Those are all great characters. It just meant they had a hard time working together early on. So then in Campaign 3, they've now found a better rhythm, a different rhythm, I should say. Not necessarily better, but better for this campaign where they can say, okay, we're going to have big things in our backstory, but we're not all hiding them. I think they early on felt like, we're going to have the same problem again. Pardon me. And Taliesin so wisely solves that problem by saying, hey, why don't we, as characters, just talk about it? Why don't we just sit down and drink? And we'll ask each other questions. What the F is up with that? And it gives you such a different vibe for this campaign, where there are things that are big mysteries now, but the characters don't know them. You know, Sam's character doesn't know his backstory. Laura's character doesn't know something about her character that she's trying to figure out. You know, you have these bigger mysteries that are not all fixed on them keeping secrets. So you have a different campaign and a different style and a different tone. Neither one is wrong or better than the other, but just to have a very different approach to how you handle secrets can help inform and make sure get everyone on the same page. And that, I think, is the problem with keeping secrets in characters. If you have someone at the table who isn't on the same page as that, it's like, come on, like, this is what we're doing. If you don't want to do that, we can do something else. But, like, if we're going to do this, please play along. That's, my thoughts on how it relates to Critical Role. And I'll mention it now because it's not going to come up on the channel for many, many years when we get to those episodes of Demystified. Well, yeah, and as you say, you know, one of the characters is still hiding so much. Yeah, they still hid things after that. But there's also some things that Talison's character doesn't know. You know, pretty important things. And also, I'm behind. I don't know what has been revealed and what has not. I'm probably at least 10 episodes behind. Let's see what else we got going on. Yeah, I mean, that's a good example. You're a changeling. Everyone else thinks you're just a human, and at some point it'll be revealed. It's sometimes just fun to have those twists. I was talking with someone else, another YouTuber, about twists in D&D. It's a very tough thing to get right, and probably something we'll talk a lot more about at some point in the future, because it is tough to get right. Meggie, welcome. I'm glad to have you here. Let's see. What else we got? Let's see. Yeah, I'll probably... Oh, it's almost 12 o'clock. I'm actually probably going to only be on for about 5 more minutes. And then we will reveal all the dogs to prove that there are multiple dogs. See, look. Here's 2 of them. But there'll be a 3rd. And then I'll wrap things up. So any last questions, comments? Oh, wow. Rumhambles, that is quite the twist. You're 30 episodes behind. Oh, yeah, this is live, Silas. Yeah, Alexandria. I think that's true for this campaign. There's a lot of... We know a lot of things the characters know, but there's a lot they don't know. Any tips for keeping NPCs distinct without voices? Strong... do you mean in terms of like keeping them distinct in the player's minds? Physical descriptions help a lot with that, and sort of reinforcing them every time they come in. Be like, you know, his flowing purple cape, you know, her smooth bald head covered in tattoos or scars or whatever. Something like that helps. Yes, and King, earlier in the stream we were talking about Tiberius. How was the Tiberius videos meaningful to me? What did I learn? They were really revealing. They were really interesting to see, like, things play out and to see... It's been so weird watching those Tiberius episodes again and to really, like, rethink some of my assumptions about that time on the show. And it was really useful. I had already pretty much known how the final episode was going to look for a long, long time, but it's a really interesting thing. I've talked about this in that video, like episode 21. I thought, oh, we have something very different to talk about here than I thought. Legal Kimchi asks, have I ever wanted to do a non-TTRPG video? What about? I would love to do some videos about movies and TV shows, and some of them I will find a way to justify to talk about for TTRPGs, and there's others where I'm like, man, at some point I just want to sit down and talk about THX 1138, and I don't necessarily think it's going to be tied into the channel, but I have a lot I want to say about George Lucas's first 3 movies, but we will, we'll see. Maybe I'll talk about those some other day. I have a lot of, like, I actually almost launched a video essay channel instead. It was just so much work. I think what bummed me out is I spent all this effort on a video about Morbius, which was before the movie came out. It was just about how Morbius was going to be bad. And I was done with it. I was like, I do not want to spend this much time being this negative about something. That's a lot of energy, just sitting here being negative about this movie. And, like, if you're doing video essays, sometimes you got to do that, which sucks. So there are still some video essays I would love to do about certain movies and videos. If I could interview Orion, what would I ask him? I don't have any interest in interviewing him. He is welcome to his piece about this topic or any other topic. I don't necessarily need to give him a platform, and I don't necessarily need him to, like, come on and relitigate his life. I mean, it's a fair question. I just don't necessarily have any interest in, I don't really have any questions for him. How you doing? How you doing? No, I mean, honestly, I don't know. I don't know what I would ask him. Like, I don't think there's anything he needs to say to me. Like, if someone wants to talk to him about other things and other accusations outside of Critical Role, that is not my sphere. That is not what I cover. They're welcome to reach out to him and try to figure those things out. I don't think he needs to go anymore into what happened on Critical Role. Does Tiberius having a 4 wisdom change anything for me in regards to role-playing him? No, because if what you're doing at the table is still making the experience less fun for other players, it doesn't matter what your rationalization is. It's just another version of it's what my character would do. Sure, maybe your character isn't, a team player, but you are playing a team game. Sure, maybe your character isn't smart, but, like, you're playing a team game. Like, it doesn't change anything for me. We'll have a whole other conversation about that. I alluded to it in the metagaming video. Legal kimchi, yeah, I know, man. It's a lot of energy. I do have some video essays I would love to do at some point down the road. Probably once I get an editor to help with the demystified videos and, like, my general, my general videos as well. I'll start, like, back end working on some video essays. I've got some I might do next year. We'll see. But this year I have a lot of really cool D&D stuff I want to talk about. So it's not the old D&D movie is currently free on YouTube. Ginny D did a great video about that movie. I at some point would be curious to watch it, but that's another situation where, like, boy oh boy, how much time do you want to dedicate to talking about this movie and watching clips from this movie and things like that? It is a tough. That's the challenge of, like, I mean, there's channels I follow. I follow a lot of channels like Patrick Willems and NerdSync and Captain Midnight. And Captain Midnight talks about, like, current events, and that means sometimes he's got to spend, like, 10 minutes talking about, and however long editing, talking about a movie he didn't like. And it's like, oh, that sounds just so exhausting. Yeah, Grog has bad stats, but Travis always makes sure people are feeling good. That's really where the distinction comes down. Are you ever afraid of people saying you make too much content on Critical Role and that you're going too hard on the person who played Tiberius? Oh, people say that about me going too hard on Orion. And listen, it's a very valid perspective. Like, absolutely, it was 8 years ago. Like, how much is it fair for people to talk about this still? I get it. I totally get that. As for people saying I make too much content on Critical Role, people probably say that too. And, like, I don't know, man. I make 4 videos every 2 weeks, and only one of them is about Critical Role. So they can go screw. I don't care what they think. Doesn't matter to me. Daniel Beschers, it's what my character do only holds up if you can answer the question, why did you make them like that? I honestly, like, people don't have to say it's what my character would do is only a problem if people are saying it defensively. Because often that's the problem, is you're getting challenged on something. And it's what my character would do seems to be something that people have identified as, well, this is my get out of jail free card. It's like, no, man, this didn't actually solve the problem. And I think we as a community let it be the answer for too long. And at a certain point, you got to be like, nah, you didn't solve, this is not an acceptable solution, which I think we've generally gotten really good. Could I point out the problems with the cast of Critical Role? I mean, my problems with the cast of Critical Role might not be the same as everyone else's. Like, I probably will do a video about the Keyleth hate at some point, but a lot of my videos about that is going to be like, why did this happen? Because I don't share it. I mean, and there's other, like, at some point I'll probably mention an issue. Like, if Liam does something that bugs me, I'll be like, hey, don't necessarily do this in your own games. But I don't think it needs to be like a whole video in the same way, because I don't know how educational that is. If someone else feels differently, they can obviously make videos about their own critiques, and we're welcome. We should continue to examine the people that we enjoy. But I'm going to make presumably several hundred videos about Matt Mercer and all these other ones. I have not even at this point in the first 27 videos been 100% charitable to everything Matt did. I think he's made mistakes, and I've identified some of them. Some of them others will not agree on or will feel are things I should have pointed out that I didn't. But, like, trying to be as honest as I can, but I also, like, it's such a different environment, because, like, if I didn't think they were good players, I wouldn't be watching the show. So there's only so critical I'm going to be comparatively. But I'll calls them like I sees them, but I'm hopefully going to continue to handle it with the respect that you all expect from the Orion arc. We're going to talk about at some point, probably not right now, because we need a little break from these sorts of videos. We'll talk about the Keyleth hate, because I still don't fully understand. I understand some of it, not all of it, and we'll talk about it. And I want to understand it. Mark Miller, thank you so much. Thank you so much for the super chat. I really appreciate it. This is so kind of you. Legal Kimchi, you're working on a video essay about CRT. It's completely borking your YouTube recommendations. and you're listening to folks who don't know what you're doing. It takes a toll on your brain. Yeah, man, I feel that. Oh, that's another more channels that I enjoy are as Legal Kimchi has alluded on his own community tab. I know the names of things. H Bomber Guy. I also say, hey folks, check out Some More News. That's a great YouTube channel. Let's see. Hey, Danny Powell. My brother-in-law is here. It's usually not a good idea to keep secrets from the GM. What are some examples of where it can be fun and interesting? Strategy and combat, and that's maybe about it. Because I think that can be fun. And we'll talk about that more in future videos. Yeah, I mean, Michael, you've hit the nail on the head for one of the factors. There's a lot of them. Sexism is part of it. The fact that she's the GM, the DM's girlfriend is part of it. I think there's also other aspects that are just like have to do with the expectations of what we expect from D&D characters in 2015. That's part of it. There's a lot of different factors. It just sucks. I mean, like, Cody's Jody. It's tough because I think that what she was trying to do, I mean, here's a perfect example. The story that she was telling with Keyleth translated perfectly to an animated show, and people didn't understand why she was doing it in a live play of D&D because that's not the power fantasy that a lot of people expect from D&D. You got your sneak peek of a Keyleth video I'm probably going to make next year is people did not understand what she was doing because she was operating on a completely different threshold than anyone else. Not in terms of quality, but in terms of what she was trying to do with the character. Daniel, that's another aspect, is are they actually consistently doing that, or are they just defending their crappy behavior? You never knew it was called the Doobly-Doo. Yeah, it's that's the official title when you're making YouTube videos. No, I'm kidding. Danny Powell, my brother-in-law, Danny. I am working on a video more about that question. I don't know how much it's going to be in that video, but I am working on a video that might touch on the topic of like how or when or whether it's worth keeping secrets from a DM. I don't know when I will get into that necessarily, but it is I really think if you pull it off in strategy in the middle of a battle, it's a different thing than any other situation. And some people don't seem to get that. I think there's also an aspect of it that's like people want to have that feeling of like pulling off a twist. And D&D is not really a great place to do twists. But again, this is something you will see in a video probably this year. So next year in 6 months, I'll have 60K and maybe working YouTube full time. Well, right now I'm working YouTube full time. I'm just not making YouTube full time money. But man, oh man, it has been a wonderful couple of months. People have been so amazing. They know that it's been a tough time for me, and they've really, really understood. Drift speed, I mean, I've made a video about that. I'll make more about it in the future. It depends on what expectations those are. I think they give people fair expectations of a certain style of play, but that is not everyone's style of play, which is part of why I make these videos. Not just the Critical Role ones, but all the other ones on my channel. So, okay. It's time for the last dog. Oh, hold on. Put you boys down. Or you're not both boys. Okay. Look. Proof. There are 3 dogs. Oh, now there are 2. All right, everybody. We're going to go ahead and call this one. This was a really wonderful live stream. I'm so sorry I didn't get to everyone's questions. I had to skip a bunch right in the middle because I was just woefully behind. Oh no, this is going to be the new narrative on my channel. There's only 1 dog. Oh boy. Some CGI green screen. A 3-headed dog. You know what? Maybe it's a 3-headed dog. We'll see. Oh god, this is going to be the running joke on my comments now. There are 4 lights, exactly. All right, folks. Thank you so much for being here. Tomorrow, I'll tell you what's coming up soon. I'll tell you what's coming up on the channel. Tomorrow we have a video called "Why Is It Usually So Hard to Convince People to Play Pathfinder 2e?" Hopefully everyone gets what I'm going for when they watch that video, but it might bug some people that I talk about how hard it is to get people to play Pathfinder when I haven't played Pathfinder yet. But I think it's I think that's a really good video. I think I'm gonna go live again on Sunday because my birthday is on Tuesday. I don't think I'm gonna go live on Tuesday, but we'll see. So if I don't end up going live on Tuesday, I'll go live on Sunday, and then on Monday, pardon me, I'm gonna unbox some miniatures that I got from Minis Monthly. That actually was a live stream on Twitch that has been edited down into some content, and then on the 13th, we get to the next Demystified video, which is about episode 28. Yes, clearly I've cast mirror image on the dogs. Now juggle the dogs. Here, if I just take them. Okay. All right, folks. Have a great night. It's 12 o'clock in the afternoon. I don't know why I said that. Have a great day, everybody. Have a wonderful time. And I will see you all. Got a new video coming out tomorrow. Hope you all enjoy it. And in the meantime, new videos are coming soon. I've got some really exciting ones coming up over the next few weeks and months. So I'm really excited for you to see some of them. All right. Bye, everybody.